So today we're reading Blood on the River, chapters 7 and 8. The epigraph of chapter 7 reads, "Such factions here we had as commonly attended such voyages that a pair of gallows was made. But Captain Smith, for whom they were intended, could not be persuaded to use them." This is from Captain John Smith, the real man, from his book, The True Travels, Adventures, and Observations of Captain John Smith. The next morning dawns clear and warm. Captain Smith is back in chains, and the gallows sits ready. Reverend Hunt calls us together for Sunday services. We meet gathered around the tree where Captain Smith is chained so that he can join us. Reverend Hunt's sermon goes on for hours. I think maybe he will not stop until every single one of us has promised to never sin again. He says to tell a lie is a sin, and that any man who lies for his own gain and does not repent will spend eternity in the agony of hell's flames. He looks right at Master Wingfield and Captain Ratcliffe delivering his sermon with passion. I see Master Wingfield squirm. Captain Ratcliffe sets his jaw and stares straight ahead. Captain Newport looks at two of them and shakes his head. I send up a prayer that Reverend Hunt's sermon will save Captain Smith from his hanging. After services, I bring Captain Smith some food. I wonder if it will be his last meal. Yet he is calm. "I've been a prisoner before, and I escaped before," he says. "When I was a soldier fighting the Turks of the Ottoman Empire, I was captured and made a slave. They shaved my head, put an iron ring around my neck, and brought me to an auction to be sold like a beast." James and Richard are nearby, and they come closer to listen. "The other slaves told me it was useless to try to escape. Impossible, they said. But one day we were working in the fields. I was threshing wheat with my threshing bat. My master rode up on horseback with his whip. He cracked the whip, brought it down on my naked back, lashed my skin open. I was enraged. I took my threshing bat in both hands and swung. He swings his arms as if knocking the cruel master. I took my threshing bat in both hands and swung. He swings his arms as if knocking the cruel master from his horse once again. Down he came, and before he could get his footing, I cracked the bat over his head. Then I beat him with the stub until there was no life left in him." No wonder Captain Smith is unafraid of these pale, weak gentlemen and their threats. If he wants to, he will kill them with his bare hands. "Then I shucked off my slave rags, put on my master's clothes, and rode off on his horse to my freedom." Captain Smith finishes the story. The three of us boys are silent. I admire his courage, and I admire the way he talks to the gentlemen as if they have no right to lord it over him. I have never known another commoner who had the nerve to do that. Reverend Hunt comes marching up, a ring of keys dangling. He takes the keys to the clamps on Captain Smith's ankles. "I've convinced them that without you as translator, we will all perish in Virginia," he says as the clamps open and fall away. "Thank you, Reverend," Captain Smith says, rubbing his ankles. "I owe you a favor." Reverend Hunt gives him a stern look. "The favor I want, then, I want you to at least act as though you have the proper respect for these gentlemen. If you insult them and anger them again, they may choose their pride over their survival in the New World." Captain Smith nods, and I wonder if he really does plan to be polite to the exalted gentleman from here on in. He is at least as stubborn as I am, so I know it will be hard for him to change. That afternoon, the sound of chopping wood rings out over the rumbling of the waves. The gallows is cut up and thrown onto the fire, where it nicely roasts our fish for supper. After 6 days on Nevis, I am fatter. The birds are tamed, so we pluck them out of the bushes with our hands. The sea's teeming with fish, and the trees are full of fruit. The only natives on the island are afraid of us, and they stay well hidden. I'm also cleaner. I have gone twice to the hot pools in the forest to bathe. But now Captain Newport says it's time to leave. We pack up the tents and cook pots, barrels we've filled with fresh water, meat, and fish we have dried for the rest of our voyage, and crates full of pineapples, mangoes, plantains, coconuts, and wild bird eggs. We sail past the Spanish islands of Vieques and Puerto Rico. We stop on the island of Mona just long enough to get fresh water for a group of gentlemen to go hunting. They leave in the morning, taking a few soldiers with them for protection from the natives. They dress as if they're going pheasant hunting on a cool English morning in silk doublets, velvet breeches, stockings, shoes, and felt hats, with their powder flasks hanging at their sides. The group returns in the evening, exhausted and faint, carrying what the expedition has killed: 2 boars, several iguanas, and the gentleman, Edward Brooks. They say Brooks' fat melted inside his body in the extreme heat. Captain Smith has a few choice words to say about gentlemen who are too ignorant to know they should carry water on a 6-mile hike in the tropics, and too ignorant to take off their extra clothing when they get hot. But this time he's wise enough not to utter these words where the gentlemen can hear him. I did not know Edward Brooks well. He was a passenger on one of the other ships. Still, it is strange to see his pale, waxy skin and his limbs stiff with death. They dig a shallow grave for Master Brooks, and we sail away, leaving him there on Mona. I have dreams that night that the cannibals find his body, dig him up, and eat him. I awake in a cold sweat. I try to calm down, reminding myself that this could not possibly happen. No one digs up a grave for food. Chapter 8. The epigraph reads, "The 6th and 20th day of April, about 4 o'clock in the morning, we descried the land of Virginia." And this is from the gentleman Master George Percy from his journal Observations. The 'tween deck seems dark after all those sunlit days on the island. We're sailing north now, toward Virginia. Reverend Hunt says we will travel right past Florida without stopping because it belongs to the Spanish. He says that 40 years ago the French had a colony at Fort Caroline in Florida. He tells me how he heard that the Spanish came and massacred all the French settlers, men, women, and children. No, we will not be foolish enough to land at Florida. Foul weather makes the 'tween deck even darker. Thunder cracks, loud as a cannon shot. I look up through the hatch opening and see the black storm clouds boiling in the sky. "Take in the sails," Captain Newport orders. Another crack of thunder booms and lightning flashes. I hear the wind whip the rigging against the masts. The sea bucks and the ship rolls and jerks. Men begin to retch again as if they were new to seafaring. The rain comes down in torrents, and when we shout that it is flooding the 'tween deck, the sailors oblige us by covering up the hatch so that we are shut in the dark with only stale, vomit-scented air to breathe. Lanterns are lit and they swing wildly, making shadows move like ghostly dancers. The gentlemen complain bitterly. "We should go back to England," they say. "We should have reached Virginia weeks ago. We must be off course. This voyage is ill-fated." I lie in my bed, angry and discouraged. Captain Newport has been telling us for weeks that we'll see land any day. Maybe we are off course. I am sick of the 'tween deck, sick of sailing, sick of storms that come one after another. And this is the most violent storm yet. The sound of crashing waves is a roar in my ears, punctuated by the creaking of the wooden ship. James and Richard lie next to me. "Are we going to die?" James asks. "Will the waves break open the hull?" I hear a loud crack, and it makes me jump. It's followed by frantic squawking, and I realize it is only a chicken crate that has smashed into an ale barrel down below. "Shut up, James," I snap at him. I'm annoyed that he could scare me into mistaking a sliding chicken crate for a cracking ship's hull. "Yes, you are going to die. Every one of us is going to die," I say. James begins to whimper, and I'm sure he's dripping snot onto the bed. "Aw, do you want your stepmom now?" I taunt him. Richard sits up and slugs me in the arm. "Stop it!" he shouts over another rumble of thunder. Leave him be, you stinking jail rat. You're nothing but a common thief. In a second, I'm up on my knees. I'm pounding Richard with my fists, punching his face, his shoulders, anywhere I can hit. He's kicking, flailing. He kicks me in the stomach and I can't breathe. James scoots out of our way and wails for Reverend Hunt. In the shifting shadows, it's hard to see. I swing. My fist connects with Richard's teeth and I feel my knuckles cut open. Now Richard is on his feet. He whacks me in the side of his head. He whacks me in the side of the head. I feel dizzy, but I jump up, ready to meet him head to toe. Strong arms close around my chest, dragging me back. I see Richard's face, blood dripping from his mouth, down his chin. It's not Reverend Hunt who has dragged me away. I will not get a sermon on how fighting is not the Lord's way, how I must learn to act from love instead of anger. No, it's Captain Smith who has hold of me. I know better than to struggle. He drags me to where the chain bolts lie, then releases me. Stand on one foot, he orders. I hesitate for a moment, thinking this is a stupid thing he's ordered me to do. He cuffs me for my hesitation. This is the first time he's hit me, and it makes me want to run, but there's no place to run to. Stand on one foot, he shouts. I can do this ridiculous thing or be cuffed again harder. It is difficult to balance on the rocking ship, but I try. I lift my left leg, balance on my right. The ship lurches. I stumble, catch myself. I try again, fall against a barrel. Do it, Captain Smith orders. He is glowering at me. Stand on one foot, you fool. Tears catch in my throat. He is worse than my father. I lift one leg. I balance for a split second, but Captain Smith shoves me, and I fall onto the tween-deck floor. I shout in frustration. He stands over me. Does it work, Samuel? He demands. Can you stand on one foot when a storm rocks the ship? Can you keep your footing when I shove you? I'm bewildered and angry. I shake my head. No, I cannot balance on one leg in a storm. Captain Smith picks up the chains that recently held him prisoner. In London, it might have worked for you, this standing on your own, treating other boys as if they don't matter. In Virginia, it will not work. Do you understand me? The wilderness is like a ship in a storm. We will need one another to survive. He clamps the irons roughly around my ankles and wrists. If these blasted gentlemen refuse to learn that fact, then at least my page will learn it. This colony will need to stand on many legs if we are not to be toppled over in the Virginia wilderness. He goes back to his own bed, and I'm left to try to find a comfortable way to sleep in my chains between two crates. Land ho! The shout comes before dawn. It's followed by a loud ruckus up on deck, whooping and hollering, laughing and stomping. Everyone on the tween deck is awake in an instant. Captain Smith calls across to Reverend Hunt. Reverend, did you pray up that storm last night? From the sounds of it blew us straight to Virginia. I'm cold and stiff from sleeping chained, curled up in a small space like a snail. I rub my eyes. My head hurts and my jaw aches. I need a slop bucket badly, and there is none within reach. I'm too proud to call for help, though, so I grit my teeth and wait. Someone lights a lantern and men begin to stir. Reverend Hunt marches Richard over to me. His cheek is swollen, and one of his eyes is turning purple. I'm proud of my handiwork. Richard looks at me, and I see a half smile across his face. I realize I must be purple and swollen too for him to look so satisfied. Reverend Hunt clears his throat. Richard has something to say, he tells me. Richard twists his shirt tail around his fingers. I'm sorry I hit you, he says quickly, and I won't call you those bad names anymore. I wonder if he means it or if he's just obeying Reverend Hunt, but mostly I'm hoping someone will figure out that I need a slop bucket before I soil my slops. Captain Smith ambles over. As I remember, it was important for someone to bring me a bucket in the morning when I was locked in those things, he says and yawns. But Samuel doesn't need anyone's help, so I suppose we'll just leave him be. That's the way he likes it. The three of them start to walk away. I am about to burst. I jump to my feet. Captain Smith, sir, I call after him. Might I please have a slop bucket? Captain Smith looks at me and laughs. Me, an officer, serving my own page? I think not. I dance from one foot to another. Why is he tormenting me? I certainly can't ask Reverend Hunt to bring it to me. Then I understand. Richard is the only one I can ask, the only one who should be asked to bring a slop bucket to another servant. I groan. I can't wait much longer, or I'll be embarrassed beyond words and have no clean slops to wear. Richard! I try to keep the desperation out of my voice. I'm sorry for punching you last night. Bring me a bucket, would you? Richard glances at Captain Smith and grins, enjoying his moment of victory. But Captain Smith puts a quick stop to the gloating. Don't make the boy wait, hop to it, he says. The moment Richard sets the bucket down, I drop my slops, have a seat, and relieve myself. Captain Smith seems satisfied with what I have learned about cooperation, and he unclamps my chains. Don't let your anger get the best of you, Samuel, he says. Learn to channel it, and it will become your strength rather than your weakness. I have seen that he has been channeling his anger at Master Wingfield and Captain Ratcliffe into his writing. He is telling his side of the story. I turn my attention to the excitement at hand. We have finally found Virginia? Master Wingfield pounds on the closed hatch. I demand to know what's happening up there, he shouts. Finally, the sailors pull open the hatch and send down reports. We have entered a bay. There are tall trees along a sandy shoreline. There's no sign of savages. Then they tell us we're dropping an anchor. A party will go ashore to explore. At last, we are allowed up on deck for our first sight of Virginia. It's green, quiet, desolate. There are no natives coming to us in canoes as they did in the Caribbean islands. There are no houses, no huts, just wise old trees and spring leaf standing guard over the sandy shore. Quiet, desolate, and free. We can pick any place, any piece of forest or meadow, and make it ours. But can they really? A group of gentlemen and sailors get ready to go ashore. Bring picks and shovels, Master Wingfield orders. Captain Smith scoffs. I suggest we find a place to live before you go digging for gold. We can't eat gold. Master Wingfield gives him a disdainful look. Did you not read your contract with the Virginia Company? The part where it says we are to turn a profit for the company as soon as possible? We will eat the supplies we brought and dig for gold. The Godspeed and Discovery are anchored nearby as well. I watch as the long boats are rowed to shore. About 30 men in all disembark from the exploratory trip, most of them gentlemen and sailors. Many of them have their muskets ready with slow matches burning. Those of us who are left spend the day sitting or lying around either on deck or in the 'tween deck waiting. And while we wait, the gentlemen, soldiers, carpenters, laborers, and servants all discuss their ideas about the new world. You can't get gold in a day. We'll need to plow and plant and live here for a while. You won't catch me walking behind a plow. I've got peasants to do that back in England. I say we eat the stores we brought, get the gold fast, and go home. The gold is not where the biggest profit is. I want to explore, find the new passage to the Orient the Virginia Company wants. Now that's how to strike it rich. If we can get goods, silk, spices, jewels, from India and China back to England without having to deal with those Ottoman Turks and their marked up prices, just think of the profits we will make. And there's one lone voice, Reverend Hunt, who says he has not come for gold or to find the new passage to the Orient. He says we have been sent by God for more noble purposes, to bring the good news of Christ to the Virginia natives and to look for survivors from the Roanoke colony. Of course, as soon as he says it, all the other men agree that's some of why they have come as well. But I know their hearts are more set on gold and profits than finding lost colonists or saving souls. James and Richard have gotten hold of a deck of cards and are playing and laughing. I'm determined to stay out of trouble, so I don't say one mean thing to them all day. When I look at the quiet forest, I wonder what it will be like to live there, to build houses and create a settlement. I wonder what it will be like to do as Captain Smith says and work with the others, rather than keeping to myself the way I have done for so long. It seems to me it will be strange, and I'm not sure I will like it. The cook starts supper. He throws a large chunk of pork and several pounds of peas with water into the cook pot. Later he adds handfuls of sea biscuits. They're hard enough to break your teeth when they're dry, but in the peas porridge they will become soft and chewy. At dusk we hear voices and look out to see the men returning. They're in good spirits, and I wonder if they've found gold already. Just in time for supper, declares the cook, and he begins to ladle peas porridge into the mess pots. Suddenly I hear a cry, then frantic shouting, and someone moaning. I've run to the railing. In the half light of dusk, I see them, 5 of them, crouched on a hill, their naked bodies painted, arrows flying from their long bows. Already one of the sailors has fallen. No, I shout, as if my objection, can change anything. Use your muskets, shoot them! I hear the command, make ready your piece. Our men load their muskets, prime the pan, charge the piece with powder, put in the musket ball, ram down the charge, cock the match. But by the time the first musket shot rings out, the Indians are already leaving, creeping away silently on hands and feet like bears. The musket balls don't even come close to them. The injured men are brought to Dr. Thomas Wotton aboard the Godspeed, a gentleman. Gabriel Archer has been shot through both hands, and a sailor has been shot twice in the torso. I see now that this land is not so free and open. This is Indian land, and they do not want us here. And what is worse, it seems to me that their bows and arrows are quicker, more accurate, and can shoot farther than our muskets.